Hey everyone, it's Sleepy Reader, aka Damien. This is going to be my comic book thoughts, my comic book countdown for the week. I've got 7 new comics that I picked up for the first week of August, and we're having another heat wave. I'm sucking in as much fluids as I can. I think it's currently about 99 degrees in my backyard. For George, who always wants to know what I'm drinking, this is Nixie Sparkling Water. Apparently it's organic and it's lime flavored. I should have had 2 more DC comics this week, but my shop only had them in the cardstock version. I didn't want to pay an extra $1 for each of them. And then I went to one of my backup shops and they didn't even get their DC books at all. So I don't know. Maybe I'll just wait till they come out digitally. But anyway, at number 7, at the bottom of my pile, you might say, was Once and Future, number 28. Only 2 more issues of this to go. In at number 6 is Dead Lucky, which I think ties into another Image Comics series, but I don't know why it says Black Market Narrative on the back. Anyway, this was in at number 6. In at number 5 was Little Monsters. I think this may be almost done too. From Jeff Lemire and Dustin Nguyen. I don't know if it says in the back. But I feel like I read somewhere that it's coming to an end. In at number 4 was this large-sized issue number 2 of Aquaman Andromeda. I think there's just 3 issues of it. They call it Book 2. And I think it's about 48 pages, large pages, from Ram V and Christian Ward. In at number 3, I put this brand new Peter Milligan book from AWA Upshot called Sacrament. And the artist is Marcelo Frusin. I put this in at number 3, which is a bit of a surprise that it was that high. And then at number 2, I'm putting the second issue of Mind Management Bootleg, this time with art by Matt Lizwinski and Bill Crabtree. And finally, in at number 1, I think I made this my number 1 last month too. I'm not sure, or last month when it came out, the week when it came out. Twig from Scotty Young, Kyle Straum, and Jean-Francis Boulot, the colorist. Nate Picos, the letterer. So that's my number 1. I'm going to dive in and take a closer look at all these and give you a few of my random thoughts about them. And then afterwards, I'll come back and do a little haul of a small stack of comics I got from mycomicshot.com this week. So let's turn the camera around. Once and Future is still one of my favorite art and color teams, but I think there's been so many issues that I've found hard to really care about and got kind of tedious for me and sometimes a little hard to follow, that it's just kind of worn me down. So it just felt like the comic I was least excited about this week, even though it might be better than the one that follows it here on the list. If anything, the colors seem to just continue to improve to me. Some amazing pages here. So probably I should have put, it's unfair to put Once and Future below Dead Lucky, but that's sort of how I felt. I was just at least curious to try a new book, and I guess, does this have something to do with Kyle Higgins' Radiant Black? I couldn't tell. It seemed to stand on its own, but maybe there's significance to things here that tie into Radiant Black. I liked the framing device of seeing the therapist and kind of a soldier dealing with PTSD whose neighborhood in San Francisco is being, I don't know, taken over by a private security company or deserted by a private security company. I really enjoyed the color here too. I don't know if I'll get any future issues, and I think, now that I think about it, this character has some kind of unexplained powers that aren't set up that well, at least within the context of this issue. Maybe if you'd been reading Radiant Black and the other things in the Radiant Black universe, perhaps it would all make sense. It's not by Kyle Higgins, and I'm just not totally clear if it is sort of just a book supported by Kyle Higgins or part of his little universe of Radiant Black. But it was kind of a fun read. It's kind of the kind of thing I might pick up the next issue depending on my mood and what other comics come out the week it comes out. It's not bad. Very good was Little Monsters number 6. The plot and the conflicts and the different characters are really kicking in now, sort of a payoff to the slow beginning of the comic, and a lot of beautiful different approaches on different pages by Dustin Nguyen. Is there a colorist listed too, or does Dustin do his own coloring? Yeah, Dustin Nguyen does his own color, what coloring there is. Still mostly grayscale, but as you saw in earlier pages, there's still some flashes of color. And it's not painting, it's not telling us exactly what's going on, but we can now kind of put the picture together of this future where kind of the monsters and the living humans have kept separate for a long time, but didn't know why they were doing it anymore. And now they're meeting up, and it's having some pretty dire consequences, changing the people who've been drinking of human blood. It does something different to them. So I really enjoyed this one. And I'll be kind of sad now when I think it's going to end soon. And then Andromeda. I have real mixed feelings about this. At times the art is beautiful, but particularly the color. Like, I don't feel like Christian Ward is a master draftsman or anything like that, but he's a great, well, presumably digital colorist and an interesting page designer. And it's a Ram V book, and I think more of the characterization and stuff that we can care about developed in this second book of Andromeda, the second issue of Andromeda, over the first. Although I still have a bit of a sense of coolness, a feeling of a distance from these characters still. And I think it's the artist's fault, but there are times where I'm just not developing a sense of which character is which. There's a lot of characters who look kind of similar, particularly when they're in these... what's that? I had a bookmark in it at one point. I forgot to take that out. We have these characters in these kind of underwater environmental suits, and it's hard to tell which one is which in these suits, the way the artist draws them. So I'm complaining a little bit, but I'm enjoying this series. I'm definitely glad that I'm in it for the whole ride, and I'm very curious to see what's revealed about this ship. There is kind of a sense of familiarity from various sort of sci-fi horror novels and such, but it's its own kind of Aquaman variant on that, so that's interesting. Yeah. So cool, another cool comic from DC. So that was a DC I managed to get, at least. Sacrament. So I came into this with very low expectations, and that might be part of why I enjoyed it more and rate it pretty highly. It's from AWA Upshot, and all of their comics read like movie pitches, but the best movie pitches seem to come from Peter Milligan, which is kind of heartening, since he's often a very good writer and a very unique writer. So even when he's trying to get closer to kind of the Hollywood kind of story, there's something a little special about what he does. So this is an interesting vision of oppressed religion in the far future, combined with demonic possession, which may or may not be real. And you can see what the art is. I think there's a lot. I'm quite sure it was drawn on a digital tablet, because a lot of times you see the same face repeat over and over again. But overall, I feel like this artist, Marcel Frusen, does creates a more exciting comic book read than some of the other artists they've been using at AWA lately. But there was that one, another one of the Peter Milligan ones, that had even better art. I'm trying to remember the name of that artist. It's like Aiko or something like that, a one-named artist. But yeah, I feel like this is a good read if you're a science fiction fan, a science fiction horror fan, and you like stories that kind of mix religion in with sci-fi. I think this is a very interesting one to keep an eye on. And then here's one that, because of the art, I would have been tempted to put it at number 1, but as you know, the art in my number 1 is also incredibly good. But it's weird. I loved the first issue of Mind Management Bootleg, both writing and art. But in this second issue, I mostly just love the art and the color. It's a artist-colorist team. Matt Lazinski and Bill Crabtree, who've worked together before and I think are working together even better this time around. And unlike the last issue of Bootleg where something seemed to go wrong with the color and the paper, this coloring works fantastically well with this rough, almost newsprint-like paper, and gives such depth and sort of pleasure to the eye. And Matt Lazinski's line work is fantastic, but he's working with a story where not much happens. Characters wander around talking. And somehow this character is talked in by this other character to join Mind Management, but I never really saw why he would be convinced or anything like that. His backstory is kind of interesting. So there's a bunch of cool touches, but maybe for my expectations of Mind Management, it seemed like a lesser issue, maybe an issue where we're going from we're manipulating characters to get them from one setting to another, or one point in the story to another. And so Matt Lazinski is doing his best to make everything extremely visually interesting when maybe there's not that much. It's not like, doesn't feel like an important part of the story in a weird way. Which is kind of a disappointment. With a different artist on every issue, I would like to feel like every issue is kind of a one and done in a way. But that said, huge delight from the art, and I'm basically in on the whole Mind Management idea and stuff, and ready to have fun with it. So it's not like I was hugely disappointed by the writing, but I just had those high expectations. I really hope to see Matt Lazinski and Bill Crabtree teamed up again. I know from chatting with Matt at a convention that he has a project of his own that he's writing that's coming up. And I think it might be also colored by Bill. So that'll be really exciting to see what they do together and where Matt goes next. And then I just got the most pleasure, so I have to put it number 1, Twig, number 4. It feels almost like more issues and less issues of Twig have come out. It's a very simple plot, but it's a perfectly good plot, fantasy plot of a hero on his journey to allow the artist, Kyle Strahm, to just do incredible things. And also in this issue, we add another supporting character. This, I forget what it's called. It doesn't have a name, but in fact, that's part of the plot. Part of the story here is that this creature gains a name. It's the last of its kind. And our hero, Twig, was supposed to cut out its heart, or so the recipe or rhyme, magical rhyme, told him to solve one of his problems, but he couldn't bring himself to do it, so the creature becomes part of his retinue, and I think it does make it more interesting to have all 3 of them on the adventure now. And we just, in a sense, it's more the same as the previous issues, going through fabulous-looking lands and having sort of adventures and tight scrapes, and it's just so much. I'm repeating myself from whenever the last time this came out, but it's a pleasure to read, pleasure to look at. Fantastic kids comic, as far as I can tell. Is there a dark side to it? I guess a bit of a dark, it's a bit menacing, whether it will get darker as it goes and turn out to be for older kids, or whether younger kids can enjoy this. It might depend on the kid, I suppose, also. So anyway, all very pleasurable stuff. It's basically a good week. Yeah, I will turn the camera back around and talk a little bit more. So I also read this week a comic called The Aviatrix, which is actually from 2009 from the artist Eric Haven. I think his first name is Eric. Yeah, Eric Haven. I've been turned on to this artist in the past by both Earl Grey and Ryan Carey have both recommended him to me at times, or directly or indirectly. I got this from Domino Books, and apparently I just ordered this because it came by itself. Normally when the few times I've poked around Domino Books, I tend to order a bunch of things at once. I just don't even remember ordering it, but I'm certainly very happy to have this older Eric Haven book. For lack of a better way of describing him, I'd say he's kind of in the same comic book realm as like Shaky Kane and Krent Abel. And he plays a lot with, he gives you kind of a weird dreamlike world that's partially based on pulps in comics. So one of these strips in here has a guy who just, whatever situation he gets into, he says, "It's okay, I'm wearing a tie." And then we get this other guy who meets up with the Aviatrix, and we get kind of an origin of the Aviatrix later in the book, and she flies around in her biplane and fights giant monsters. It's just all kind of surreal and dreamlike and drawn in kind of a pleasing manner. I don't know if it says anything in terms of society or anything like that. You know, it's an indie comic, so it's supposed to be more meaningful or something, but it's good pulp fun in my opinion. Surrealism and just strangeness. So for me, it's a nice change of pace. I wouldn't want all my comics to be like this, but it's kind of delightful when you come across them like this occasionally. Yeah, so this is the one with some of her origins here. So I wish there was an Aviatrix 2. I don't know if there was. I guess I have to look back at Domino Books and try to figure out. I probably ordered it just because I saw, the name Eric Haven, and I knew I liked him, so I thought, well, there's one I haven't read yet, and I'll try grabbing it. And then I think mostly under the influence of, while watching a video by our friend Loading the Cannon, Mr. Colin, I think as I was watching his video, I started adding things to my cart on mycomicshop.com, and I think some of these are comics he may have gotten from dollar boxes or something, but I thought, well, now that I know of the existence of this, I just want to make sure to get it. So here is a Sergio Aragonés comic that I never heard of before that DC did apparently in 1999, when I was not paying much attention to DC at all at that point, where his character that he's made up called Fanboy interacts with lots of characters from the DC universe. So I started reading it. It didn't seem that funny to me, but at this point, I guess I'm a Sergio Aragonés completist, and maybe as I read more, it'll seem funnier to me. So he teams up with other sort of mainstream artists. So this issue has Jerry Ordway, Bernie Wrightston, Matt Halley, and Tom Simmons. I wonder where I didn't get to the part drawn by Wrightston yet. That sounds interesting. I don't see it. Well, anyway, maybe I'll talk about these some more. So I think I got all 6 issues, and they're out of order here. There's issue 2. Looks like a Green Lantern. So Sergio drawing along with Gil Kane. It also mentions Kevin Nolan, David Gibbons, Wendy Pinney, and Will Bleiberg are in this issue too. So just as kind of a guest star stunt comic, it's kind of interesting to me. That's a familiar cover design, but with the Sergio Fanboy character added in. Brent Anderson and Bill Sienkiewicz are the guest artists in this one, issue 3. Issue 4 has guest artists Russ Heath, Marie Severin, and Jordi Bernay. I'm guessing as I read further into these, I'll start getting into it more. I mean, it's kind of an interesting gimmick. It would have been more fun if Gru were meeting all these people or someone. Okay, I'm excited about this Batman one. Fanboy with a lot of Batman artists. Dick Sprang, Jim Mooney, Joe Gila, Neil Adams, Frank Miller, Bruce Timm. I mean, how can you resist that? That sounds amazing. And then finally, issue 6 of 6 with a Brian Boland cover. Or Sergio and Brian Boland, I assume. I just see the Boland signature, but that looks like a Sergio drawing on Wonder Woman's lap. And the guest artists include Steve Rude, Dan Spiegel, Phil Jimenez, and Mike Grell. I'm going to open this up, see if I can quickly find some of the Mike Grell. There we go. We need more Mike Grell. Come on, Mike Grell, do some new comics. Okay. So that is Fanboy. And then Colin showed this comic called Dreamtime, and I just liked the look of it, so I just went and bought it. I haven't actually opened these. I saw Colin look inside. Blind Bat Press. I don't know what the premise of this is at all. Yeah, it had kind of appealing black and white art that I saw looking over Colin's shoulder. A lot of panels, not stinting on the panels. So I will let you know at some point what I thought of Dreamtime. I plan to read this pretty soon. And so are they all? There's Dreamtime number 2. This almost looks like a Cerebus cover or something. Well, this time there's comics on the back. I wonder if that's part of the story, or it looks like it's just the end of the story. Yeah, everything in here looks like it's very generous with tons of panels. Interesting. By creator Henrik Rare, publisher Mark Inns. Printed in Canada. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. And Dreamtime number 3. Let's see. This also looks like it ends on the back. So maybe 3 issues is all there was. But it looks very unique. It's kind of different than other indie comics. What's the, it's $250 in 1995. Okay, going back further in time, I think I'm always looking, oh shoot, I'm missing one. Oh well, I got 3 Chamber of Darknesses, but one of them is by the side of my bed right now. I got issue 2, and then I got issue 5, and all of these. So a lot of these Marvel Horrors comics from the Bronze Age will have reprints from the Silver Age or even pre-Silver Age. But Chamber of Darkness at this time was all original stories, and you can probably tell that's a Jack Kirby cover. And inside is a Jack Kirby story written and drawn by Jack Kirby. He gets the full credit there. And I think there, just before he left DC, there were a few stories where he finally got credit as the writer. So I guess he got to write the script also. Because the other one I can think of was the... what are they called? Not the Eternals, not the Forever People. The Inhumans. He did an Inhuman strip that was fully scripted by him. And then further on in here we have Roy Thomas and Johnny Craig. And so I really like seeing this kind of early bronze or late silver grouping of creators there's Denny O'Neil writing with Paul Ryman, try their hand at these short horror stories that were such a staple of Marvel before the Fantastic Four. So I think that's it. And that one by Denny O'Neil looked very much like The Heap. I assume it's a bit of a tribute to The Heap. And I assume this would be before the Swamp Thing and the Man Thing made their appearance. And then, so as I said, I have issue 2, and that was issue 5, and here's issue 6. So I think just when oh, this is fun. That is supposedly Sal Buscema at his drawing board, actually scripted by Len Wein. And is it in the same issue? No, I think in issue 1 there's a story that apparently is narrated by Stan Lee, although the script is by Roy Thomas, but Stan Lee is drawn into the comic. But here's one written by Mimi Gold and art by Dick Ayers. And Mimi Gold was a woman writer who wrote just a few strips at Marvel for a brief amount of time. She also worked in The Office and was introduced to Marvel originally through Jim Steranko. And I think, did she go on to other more prestigious publishing or into film? I'm not sure. I read that she had studied film. Who's that? That looks like Ditko. Yeah, that's Ditko. There's no other credits there. So anyway, these kind of excite me. I like these short horror stories, and to see them coming from Marvel at that time, when mostly you got that kind of story from DC around then. Oh, and I haven't really taken a close look at these. I kickstarted Crime Busters, and I enjoy these covers. The first one that I opened was in black and white. I don't know if they're all in black and white. So I'm not really, this is one of those things that I just kind of took a flyer on Kickstarter, so we'll have to see how it develops as a read. Let me see, I'm going to try. Oh, there's still tape on this one. Tape is the enemy. Are they all in black and white? Oh, I like that back cover. Oh, no, there's some color. It looks like a beginning artist, so to speak, although it's also purposefully kept simple. But it looks like it could be fun. Maybe kind of a old school mystery, or maybe horror. I'm not sure. Krampus on Campus. The spell of the sorcerer. So maybe there's magic involved. Okay, thank you for joining me. I'm filming a little out of order, but this should be, I think, the end of the video. Talk to you later.